This episode of the Golden State with Mates podcast, I'm joined by William Coolidge. He is the host of Dubs and Discourse on KZSC. Had a really good chat with Will about his instant reaction to the Chris Paul trade and how his perspective has changed over the weeks since the move was made. We also spoke extensively about Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody and what they could add to the Warrior rotation and expectations surrounding them heading into their third seasons. We also spoke a little bit about what the Warriors should do with their final roster positions as well. As always, give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave a review. That would be fantastic and greatly appreciated. You can find us on YouTube as well. Subscribe there if you haven't already. You can follow me, Peter O'Keefe, at POC252 on Twitter and Threads. Enjoy the episode. Alrighty, welcome, Will. Let's get straight into it. The draft day trade. Woj reports that the Warriors are trading Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. Your initial reaction on Twitter is, please God, no, and bring back Bob. We get a bit of an idea there of your initial reaction, but dive into it a little bit more for us.
That's funny. I forgot I tweeted that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I was honestly I was like in shock, honestly, when it happened. Like I called my friend up. He's a Kings fan, but like he's also, Sac and San Francisco are close. So he's a Warriors fan too, kinda. And he was like, we were both like, what? Like at first I didn't really know like what the point of it was. But my original reaction was just like shock and like I hated it at first. I mean, as you could see from what I tweeted, like especially this is what Mike Dunleavy, it was like one of his first moves as GM, new GM. It's like it seems so like it's just so dramatic of a move. And I since then though, I think I've kind of it's sobered. I'm a little more sober, and I can kind of see the vision. I think it's really put the Warriors into like a one last dance type of scenario. Like I get like, Jordan Poole, we signed him for a huge contract before the new CBA deal or whatever. And so, that has implications. And they probably didn't want to ride that, contract, the new tax stuff. But like I'm a huge fan of Jordan Poole. I think he was like, I mean, besides the big playoff, I think my biggest problem with the trade was I felt like Jordan Poole could command a lot more value. And I still think that. Like I thought Chris Paul, like I like Chris Paul. I think he's definitely in the twilight of his career, but I thought he was going to get bought out. And I thought that was like the popular conception, right? Was that he was going to get bought out after he got traded to the Wizards. But to see the Warriors trade like a franchise cornerstone in Poole for him, I was a little flabbergasted. And I can kind of see the vision now, but I still I'm pretty against it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most Warrior fans are the same. Is your initial reaction is the emotional one and just the complete shock, and you called it obviously dramatic, and that's exactly what it is. And as time goes by, we can actually analyze why they've done this, and there's clear reasoning behind it. Do you think that Chris Paul is a fit on the Warriors? Because you just mentioned there the buyout aspect of it. I remember like covering it beforehand, there was a genuine possibility that, hey, could the Warriors get Chris Paul after a buyout for a veteran's minimum and potentially go down that route?
Exactly.
And then in that perspective, trade Jordan Poole for, I don't know, one of the Raptors forwards, OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam or someone, front court piece.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the trade come through where Poole actually gets dealt for Paul. Do you think that CP3 is a fit at the Warriors? Like, how has your perspective of the trade changed in the week since?
Yeah, like I was saying, I like the trade a little more now. I do think CP is a fit on the Warriors. I think he brings probably he's one of the greatest, basketball minds in the history of the game. And I think that will fit amazing with the Warriors. And I think he'll be able to play with Steph and play with the Warriors in general. I think it'll be great for Kuminga to have one of the greatest point guards. I mean, he already has Steph, but now you have someone who's going to, practically spoon feed him. So I think I think he's a great fit on the Warriors. I saw recently, I don't know, like if anything's changed, but I remember Chris Paul got asked about coming off the bench, and he was kind of, hesitant. He was like, well, no one's told me I'm coming off the bench. And so that I didn't really like because, I get his mentality. He's a Hall of Fame point guard. And I think I think that's, if he's going to fit on the Warriors, I think he has to, come off the bench and hopefully it's a smooth transition there. I don't see a starting lineup or I don't see, a season full of Chris Paul starting, winning the Warriors a championship. And I think the sooner, that can be, he can make that transition, then I think, the easier it'll be to win during the season and the more cohesive things will be. But yeah, I like you were saying about Jordan Poole, I think we could have, for me, it would, to me, I would have liked it more if we could have traded him to the Timberwolves and got Naz Reid. I think Naz Reid would be I'm a huge Naz Reid fan, and I think Jordan Poole for Naz Reid would have even been better. But yeah, I think Chris Paul will fit. It's just what we gave up kind of hurts,
Yeah, well, that obviously someone like Naz Reid that would have saved the Warriors a heap more money as well. Now, obviously, he only just re-signed with the Timberwolves, so I'm not sure about his contractual situation there. But even Cat would have been, if the Timberwolves want to keep Naz Reid around, they've obviously got Rudy Gobert as well. Cat, what do you reckon about that potential?
Right. I would have been cool with that, I guess. I guess the Warriors, again, I think maybe part of the reason they got rid of Poole was because of the contract stuff, and Cat has a big contract in his own. So maybe that's kind of not what they were in their framework when they were thinking about it. But I think what just occurred to me when the trade went down was about an underrated aspect about Poole was his durability. And I think I might have seen you on the timeline say that. I don't remember exactly it was, but and that's so true that I think a problem with Paul is that he's definitely in the twilight of his career. Like we said, he's not as durable as he used to be. He's been injured a lot, and he's just old, and comes with the territory of being an older player in the league. And Poole played, I want to say he played every game for the Warriors last season. And I remember when Curry went out, Poole, it's been a thing that Poole just steps up. If you remember the playoffs of the championship run 2022, Curry was coming off the bench because Poole was so hot in the starting lineup. And I just think the Warriors are really going to miss Poole's durability, and it's something it's kind of funny. I feel like they've been taking Looney and they've been taking Looney's durability for granted, and I think they'll by doing this trade they're taking Poole's durability for granted for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just
in terms
aspect.
Of we talk about the prospective names like Cat or Anunoby or Siakam or whoever else it may be. Do you see Chris Paul on the Warriors at the end of next season, or do you think there's a genuine possibility that he's flipped here for a different player, again, going back to potential front court needs?
Right. Yeah, I definitely I see him on the Warriors at the end of next season. This just feels like such a we won't really know until the trade deadline, it feels like, or somewhere, once we get into the season. I think we're just gonna have to see the fit for itself, and I think other teams are gonna have to I could see another team wanting to get off a big contract like Cat. Maybe we wouldn't get a Chris Paul for Cat trade, that might be a little too extreme, but a team wanting to get, because Chris Paul, this is last year of his contract, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
This
he's got an option for the following season, but the Warriors will bring him back on $30.8 million.
A player option?
No, team option.
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Oh, team. Okay, yeah,
well, it's
team option. So really, yeah, exactly. So he could basically be an expiring contract. So if I'm the Timberwolves and this Cat and the Cat and Gobert experiment isn't working, and I just want to save a lot of money, then yeah, sure, I might trade away Cat for an expiring deal. So I could, or not just the Timberwolves, but other teams. So I think we're really just gonna have to see what kind of the weather is like in the NBA. But yeah, I could definitely see Chris Paul getting flipped at this point. But I could also see him at the with the Warriors at the end of the season. I think we're just really gonna have to dip our toe in at this team and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to the kind of starting point that you made, I don't think the issue is necessarily whether Chris Paul is going to be starting or not. It's actually more so, I think, whether he's going to be a part of closing lineups, because we saw the three
Right.
guard lineup with Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole just wasn't tenable defensively to
Yeah.
stand up late in big playoff
Mhm.
games. Chris Paul's a better defender than Jordan Poole. He's a 9-time all-defensive player, but still, that's a real lack
Yep.
of size. And I think the
Yeah.
Warriors, I wrote an article that came out yesterday, the Warriors have options now in terms of that fifth player, that glue guy, that connector to go with Steph, Clay, Wiggs, and Dre. You've got CP, obviously. I think Saric is, and we might get
Yeah.
onto him in a little bit, I think he's an underrated option as a potential guy that could close games. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to happen on a consistent basis,
Yeah.
but I think that's an option there just with the way he
Right.
plays and that Warrior fit that he brings. And I
Yeah.
don't think we can underestimate the development in Kuminga and Moody as well, because Kuminga was closing some games during the regular season last
Yeah.
year, and Moody closed
Yeah.
probably the biggest game of the Warriors season that ultimately cost them the season, Game 4 against the Lakers. He played the final
Right.
10 minutes of that game, so I don't think we can
Right.
underestimate those
Wow.
options.
Yeah.
In saying
Totally.
that, what do you think the Warriors? So the Golden State have 2 roster spots remaining here, 13 contracted players. They'll probably go
Yeah.
into the season with the 15th one vacant. What else do you think they need on this roster for next season?
Yeah. I think. Sheesh. I think a big. I was looking at the roster, the current roster, and I think like a big gap is that forward spot. I think like ideally, you can get someone who can just like um, you know, be 3 and D or something like that, just a swingman, I guess. Like I think back to like reminiscent of the championship run, like someone like Otto Porter. You're obviously you're highly. I don't think you're gonna get something like that at this point in free agency or out of the free agent market. But someone just like an Otto Porter, Jake Crowder type mold of player, I think that'd really go good. Like you're saying about the closing lineups, like this isn't like a video game. Like in real life, like the Warriors, I feel like they like those lineups. They like the JaMychal Green at the center. They like the 6'8", 6'9", kind of forward slash center. So like with 2 roster spots, I like a forward. I would say center as well, like a big body. Just because it feels like the Warriors have been missing someone like that for a while now. And I think it's kind of that's like an insecurity in a way. Like back to Looney, like I'd be surprised if Looney can like play all 82 games again, like he has for the past like 2 seasons. I feel like, or been super durable. So I think just having like a big body would be great. I do like the thing. I'm not super adamant about the Warriors getting that in free agency at this point though, because I do like Jace Johnson, who has played for the C Dubs, the Santa Cruz Warriors, and I mean I got to watch him a lot in person last year because I'm in Santa Cruz, of course, so I got to go to games and stuff. So that was cool. And I thought Jace Johnson was he's a 7-footer, and I think he'd be a really good fit on the if he got pulled up to the Golden State Warriors. So and of course they got Saric to run some backup center minutes and stuff. So for me, I think like I saw like Derrick Jones Jr. is a free agent. I think Derrick Jones Jr. would go great. He's like a forward that can he offers some hops. Like he's explosive. He can hit the corner three. Like even a Justice Winslow, tenacious defender, who's trying to revive his career after having so much upside early on in his career. So yeah, like a forward, in my opinion. I think they should look for like some forwards to run up the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about those closing lineups and the glue guy, the connector kind of thing. It's really about Steve Kerr wanting to provide more spacing on offense because, playoff time, the
Yeah,
Loon Dre combination just becomes too difficult really to put out there on the floor for major
yeah,
minutes with the lack of
yeah,
floor spacing that those two have. but you also don't want to dive into 3-guard lineups where you're giving up stuff defensively and you're just way too small. And therefore, it's about finding that 6'8", 6'9" guy who can provide the floor spacing as a perimeter threat, but he's also not 6'2", 6'3", and the defensive issues that would come with that. And that's why we saw almost out of nowhere JaMychal Green be a starter for the Warriors for a couple of games in the second round of the playoffs, despite having a very up and down, probably disappointing season. Steve threw him in there simply because he wanted that kind of guy. He wasn't really the perfect fit, but I think Saric is going to be a better fit than what JaMychal Green was. That's for sure. The biggest question now going into next season, are the Warriors championship contenders in your opinion?
I think they're contenders. I don't think they're the favorite by any means. Maybe by some means actually, but like you re-signed Draymond Green, you got the core together. I think as long as you have Curry, Clay, and Dre, I think you're a contender. And it's just about like they just got to put it together. I think they have all the pieces. It's just about we just have to see. In 7 months or whatever, whenever the playoffs are, we're gonna see how it works. But I think they're still contenders for sure.
Yeah. So if you talk about the playoffs, like what's your expectation for the regular season with this aging core, with Steph, Clay, Dre, CP, all 33 years of age and older? What's your expectations for the regular season in terms of where do they need to get in the seedings? Is it around that 6 seed again, which they had last season, obviously, and then were able to take the Kings out in the first round? Is it around that mark?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm not expecting a great regular season, to be honest. Just looking at realistically, like we were talking about Poole's durability, I honestly don't. A lot of this roster is not very durable. You can expect Curry to miss games. You can expect Clay to miss games. You can expect Chris Paul to miss games, and these are going to be the big pieces of the team. And so, like you really need. I don't think without that durability, it's hard to stay like a first seed or a second seed. And so like I'm expecting this team, not to not to do super great in the regular season, but I think 4 or 5 range is good enough. Just with the Warriors experience, like we saw, it didn't really mean much these playoffs for them to be. I mean, it kind of did, considering how bad they were in the road. But I think as long as they can get to the 3, 4, 5 range, I think you're good. I think 6, especially being in the play-in, that's really tough, and I it's not ideal, but I think just getting to the 4 or 5 range, I'd be happy if they were the 4 seed this year, to be honest. And it's gonna take just figuring out the road woes. I mean, I still don't really know what happened last season. Maybe you have some insight into that, but maybe it was I heard Draymond saying, because he felt like he lost his voice in the locker room a little bit after the Poole incident, and so when they were doing bad on the road, he felt like he couldn't really speak up and stuff. And maybe that was it. Maybe that's better because Poole's gone, but figuring out those road woes is going to be big for that. And but yeah, I think sweet spot's like the 4 seed for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they'll be fighting for a first or second seed, that's for sure. But I do think that you've got the Nuggets, who are probably deserve to be the clear favourite, especially at least in the West at this point. And then you've got a bunch of teams that I think the Warriors are included in that could be anywhere between 2 and 7, really. Like there's probably 6 or 7 teams there that are pretty even in terms of projections going into next season. I think you talk about the road woes. That's probably the biggest thing they have to get right for next season. I do think it came down to the lack of vibe, I guess, with the team last season, obviously stemming from the Dre JP incident in training camp. And I feel like there was a real lack of motivation as a result around the team. And it's easy to get motivated when you're playing on your home floor in front of your home fans. You can get up and play consistently under those terms. But when you take it on the road, it's a lot more difficult. You're away from home, obviously, and you're playing in a hostile environment. And I just don't think the Warriors really got themselves up for those occasions consistently throughout the regular season. I think they showed signs
Right.
that they could. I mean, Game 7 against the Kings, Game 5 against the Kings, that was obviously a playoff series, meant
Yeah.
everything, and they were able to get themselves up for that and perform well, and obviously win those 2 games to be able to win the series. And even there were some games during the regular season where I know the Celtics game they lost mid-season that went to overtime. I mean, that was a pretty strong performance really on the road, and they had a couple others like that,
Right.
but they obviously just weren't able to do it consistently. And especially for an aging core now, it's about what is actually important to you, and really for those guys, it's all
Yeah.
about winning a championship. And so, those early games last season where you lose games in Orlando, in Detroit, games against teams that ended up being bottom 5 in their conference,
Yeah.
like those games don't mean anything to this core of players, and
That
so we shouldn't
that's
actually be
yeah.
surprised if they lose those games.
Yeah. No, yeah, that Detroit game was terrible. I remember they didn't have. I mean, of course, Cade's out. I don't think. Who was giving us buckets? It was like someone, a nobody. I forgot who it was, but yeah, it was a terrible game. But you struck a chord. I don't know what you said, but I just want to go back to the contenders thing for a second. I am scared, and I'm gonna go back and say I think the Warriors are weak contenders. I'm gonna have to bypass my fandom, which tells me the Warriors are gonna win the championship, and I just because I remember in the playoffs, like it feels like the Warriors don't have a second guy anymore. It was always Klay Thompson, or at some points, I guess it was Curry or KD interchangeably. But it really it feels like it's just Curry and then the rest of the people. And I feel like Wiggins was able to offer some and it feels like they might have won the championship that way, but it feels like that's not sustainable. And I'm kind of scared, 2 years later after that championship going into next season now, with that. So, yeah, it kind of scares me that, there's not really that second guy, it feels like now.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
Wiggins
That was kind of a
was
tangent.
that
Sorry
guy
about that.
for a playoff run. Wiggins was that guy for a
Yeah.
playoff run, and
Right.
he's now obviously had a really
Right.
up and down season last year, where he obviously missed a heap of games with injury, which has been really rare for him over the course of his career. He's been so durable,
Yeah.
and then obviously he had the period post All-Star break where he missed due to personal reasons. And so for him, I think and for the Warriors, it's really important for him to reestablish himself as Golden State's second best player next season, because can Dre be the second best player on a championship team now? I don't think so. I think we saw him as the second best player last season, and it took the Warriors to the second round of the playoffs. That's probably the limit. Clay, probably about the same. I don't think he's going to be the second best player on the Warriors. So unless you magically think that Jonathan Kuminga can explode and all of a sudden be the Warriors' second best player, then it is Andrew Wiggins. And he is the one that's going to have to be the guy here to kind of reestablish himself and become that player that he was during the 2022 playoff run. What for you is the most exciting aspect for you next season, whether it's like what the Warriors are going to do or it's an individual player sense? What's the most exciting facet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just such a hoops head. I'm just excited for next season already. I'm just excited for more Warriors games. I think last season was my last season, or last season was my first year watching every Warriors games, and so I'm just excited to see the Warriors in general. But I think I'm excited for Moses Moody. He's been I've loved Moses Moody since he was drafted. Uh, you know, during the championship year, I loved when Curry was out for a while, and a lot of guys were out, and Moses Moody had 30-point game, and he was showing really good signs during his rookie year, and last season was kind of up and down. But during the playoffs, we saw Kuminga and Moody, their minutes shifted. Moody gained Kuminga. It was weird. And we saw Moody do really good things with those minutes. Like you were saying, he played the last 10 minutes of that game 4. So I'm excited to see what Moody does. I think especially with Dante DiVincenzo gone, they're going to lean on Moody a lot more. Even though they kind of have GP to fill that, uh, real gritty role off the bench as a guard. But I'm excited for Moses Moody. I think, I yeah, Moody and Kuminga definitely too. I don't think he'll be the second best player in the league, but I'm excited for him. Yeah, the two guys.
Yeah, I think they're the kind of wild cards for the Warriors in terms of if they can take a major leap
It's a
into
good.
championship contention next season,
Yeah,
then I think
yeah,
Kuminga and Moody are the ones that really need to explode into 20-minute per game players. I do find it difficult to kind of put a projection
yeah,
on where Moody sits heading into next season because, as you said, we had this whole regular season which was
yeah,
fairly disappointing, and I think some of that disappointment was towards Steve Kerr and the lack of opportunity that he gave Moses Moody. But then, of course, in the playoffs, almost seemingly out of nowhere, he's like playing real
yeah,
meaningful minutes and is like
yeah,
part of a closing lineup here and there. And it's like really crazy. So
yeah,
I remember going into, because he had meaningful minutes in the 2022 playoffs in the Western Conference Finals as well against the Dallas Mavericks. And that was really
yeah,
exciting. And I went into last season thinking Moses Moody is going to be the most ready to go of the young guys, which at that point included James Wiseman as well. And I thought he would average 20
yeah.
minutes per game last season. That ultimately didn't end up happening. Like, it's hard for me to kind of project how many minutes is he going to average next season and what are the kind of numbers he's going to put up. Do you have an idea of
Right.
how much you expect him to play next season?
Yeah, like I'm in the same boat as you. Like I thought last year, these were gonna be, they were gonna be core parts of the rotation. And Kuminga, for the most part, throughout the whole regular season, he was that. But yeah, Moody definitely wasn't. But I feel like at this point, I feel like Moody is gonna be 15 minutes a game. I think it has to happen now. The only thing I would say is that Lester Quinones, I think he could
Mm.
definitely come out and ball for the Warriors. I think he's going to surprise a lot of Warriors fans because I think a lot of casual Warriors fans aren't really following the G League or much. But like Lester Quinones is legit. Like he's a bucket, and I think that's he might steal some of those minutes. I think coming in, depending if he's on the team or if he's playing for the G League still. But yeah, I think Moody should be a good 15 minutes a game. Um,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
like you were saying, sorry, I don't. Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
you're right. No, you go.
Oh no, I was just saying I didn't want to ramble on too long, but like I think you expressed it really well in the wild card because what I'm most excited for next season, it's like I know what to expect from Curry. I kind of know I think I know what I'm expect from Clay. I think I have everyone's role kind of like figured out in my head and everyone's like how they're gonna play. Really, I know Draymond's gonna get like 7 points a game, 8 rebounds, and like 7 assists. But
Mm.
I think it's exciting to think that Kuminga or Moody can make that jump because like I feel like that
Yeah.
that would be it'd be pivotal. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think 15 minutes a game would be minimum, really. Like, I think he should be pushing closer to the 20 mark, and same for Kuminga, because as we spoke about before, with Jordan Poole
yeah,
and the durability he provided going out the door, the younger players are going to have to step up to be playing
right,
consistently and to be logging a lot of minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if Kuminga and Moody are fit and healthy the whole of next season, which is unlikely. It's an 82 game season, but like they could play every game the whole season
yeah,
if their form warrants it, and
yeah,
obviously if they're healthy. Because like, how many games is Steph and Clay and Dre and CP going to play? Like, are any of those guys going to play more than 65, 70 games? Unlikely. I don't think any of them will play more than
right,
70. So they're going to need those younger guys
right,
to
yeah,
play extensive minutes for some portions of next season. So I could see them averaging at least 15 minutes, if not closer to 20 minutes per
yeah.
game. Uh, what's up for you in the off season now?
Yeah, like my like what I'm doing. Or
Yeah, what you're doing.
yeah, what I'm doing. I mean, my show's not. Of course I'm part of KZSC, which is like UC Santa, my university's radio station. And so I've kind of I'm not doing a show this summer quarter. We're on like the quarter system, and so but I'll be back doing it with my homie Sam, who's a big Nuggets fan. We'll be getting back to that in September, so I'm excited to get my show back then. But for now, I'm just this is it's honestly great to come on your show right now because I haven't been doing any basketball stuff since my show ended in like June, mid June. So yeah, I haven't been doing too much. And there hasn't been too much basketball stuff, anyways. Of course, like we're kind of we just had summer league, but yeah, I'm just not doing too much, really.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get back
Yeah.
to it, though.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's a well-deserved break for you. We'll have to get you back on this podcast
Yeah.
before next season starts. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of ask you a question real quick, if that time
Yeah,
permits.
no, go on.
On
Yep.
you asked me what are you most excited for next season with the Warriors?
Yeah, I honestly think it's probably Kuminga to me because there's a
Yeah.
recent article came out where Keith Smith of Spotrac spoke to an anonymous Warrior insider in Las Vegas at Summer League, and the insider basically said, "Yep, we know Kuminga needs more minutes, and we're opening up that front court rotation for him to see more minutes next season." And as disappointing as the playoffs were for him, getting axed from the rotation, which again, like the Moody regular season thing, I think a lot of the disappointment of that is directed at Steve Kerr rather than Kuminga. But this is a guy that averaged over 20 minutes last regular season, averaged nearly 10 points a game, a real major two-way threat, I think, is where he can get to in this league. We saw him guarding some of the best perimeter players in the league last season, especially those forwards. Like, he had games against Tatum and Doncic, which were quite impressive defensively. And then just what he brings to a Warrior lineup that really lacks athleticism and lacks that rim pressure. I think he is a big part of this team. And I think that's going to be re-established early next season after what was a disappointing playoff campaign where he didn't really get too much run whatsoever. You got anything else for me at all?
I mean, I guess I also kind of wanted to ask because you were kind of firing some questions to me, and then I got curious what you're thinking.
No, that's fine.
What do you think about the Warriors contender? Or actually, we get kind of mixed into that. Like, what do the Warriors need, and maybe to get to keep their chances at winning a title next year? Like, what we do with those two roster spots?
Yeah, look, I'm exactly the same as you. Look, I do get the idea of a 3-and-D forward kind of thing. I'm not sure who you're getting at this point that is necessarily going to fit that bill with a minimum contract in free agency with most of the options off the board. However, I do think that if they were to get someone like that, I'm a little bit concerned with how much playing time that may take away from a Kuminga and a Moody. Like I spoke on a recent podcast about the potential of Rudy Gay if he was to get bought out by the Oklahoma City Thunder. I do think that Rudy Gay, he can play some 4, maybe a little bit of small ball 5 for you. I just am concerned, like, is 36-year-old Rudy Gay really worth it if it means that he's going to be limiting the potential playing time and opportunity of Kuminga and Moody? I'm worried about that. And if you could get a guy in who was, a really good option who was potentially could play in a closing lineup, then in that perspective, the risk would be worth it. But I'm concerned about the whole dynamic with Kuminga and Moody and then another forward potentially coming in. I do think that they need a centre for the exact same reason as you outlined with the whole Looney durability thing. I've said it before. I think odds would suggest that there's a good chance that he misses a period of next season. Like, how many guys go through 3 straight NBA seasons without missing a game? Not only that, I just don't think you want him playing 82 games. Do you? Why are we continually loading up on this guy? Like, Play him.
Right.
He's like a veteran now. Put him in the same mold as Steph and Clay
Yeah.
and CP and Draymond, where he only plays 65 to 70 games. I'm like, why are we putting the load on this guy to play all 82? It's silly. It's going to hurt the Warriors and him down the line. I think as
Yeah.
good as it is now with his durability, like it could impact him down the line. And so they
Yeah.
definitely need another center. Again, who's available that could potentially come in and make a real impact. I don't know what your thoughts are on Christian Wood, but he's a kind of non-Warrior fit but very talented offensive player. Or they do it
Yeah.
with, a two-way contract like your guy Jace Johnson or Reggie Perry or Harry
Yeah.
Giles III or someone like that.
Right. Yeah. Christian Wood feels like it would definitely be like a Boogie Cousins with the Warriors a few years ago type situation where he's like, he kind of wants to revive his value. I feel like he commands a little more than what the Warriors can pay him. But I mean, I wouldn't mind Christian Wood on the roster. I feel like he kind of spreads the floor a little bit. That'd be nice. But yeah, I definitely, I feel that with the front court stuff. And you're saying they're trying to open up some time for Kuminga as well. But I mean, back to Looney too. I don't want to take too much time, but I mean, we did see, like you were saying, like we actually did see in the playoffs, Looney was visibly tired. Like he was kind of going through it. He was tired. So yeah, I think he definitely deserves some of a break. And it'd help the Warriors out. But yeah, that's all I got for you.
Very good. Where can we find you on socials?
Yeah, you could find me at. See, let me find my Twitter. I feel like my Twitter's not really. That's where I'm most basketball active. So, at Coolidge William Coolidge, William William, and of course, I just had my show on KZ. You can find me on KZSC. Of course, it's a local radio station, but they stream around the world. So you can find that on. You could just look up that online. And I also have started a Spotify. It's Dubs and Discourse, which was my KZSC show's name. So that's on Spotify. You want to check that out. I have some interviews with people with the Warriors and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, that's where you could find me. Definitely can get active coming this September back in school. And look out for some interviews and stuff like that. So
very good. Oh, well, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Pete. It was great to talk with you, of course. Another great Warriors basketball mind. So yeah, it was. Let's do this again another time.
Absolutely. Thank you.